America. A scare house in Pittsburgh.
We're back again. I'm Katie Dudders, here for another podcast, along with Mr. Scott Simmons.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
And today we are joined by Miss
Ayne Terceira.
And Anne, you are very familiar to all of us, because we've had you in the basement for how many years now?
4 years? Yes. Back when it wasn't the basement.
Yeah, well, let me... This will be this coming season will be the 4 years up till now, because ScareHouse Secrets, which we've talked about in the previous podcast, and then 3 seasons of The Basement, as well as all the various one-offs we've done.
Mm-hmm. Every single one.
And I know we talked about it on a previous podcast, but to quickly review, ScareHouse Secrets was the precursor to The Basement. We called it ScareHouse Secrets. It wasn't something we really marketed. It was something we just started as an experiment about halfway through that season. I think we maybe mentioned it fleetingly on Facebook and Twitter once or twice, and just said, if you want to see the secret, basically come ask. And the space underneath the main scare house that is now the basement was, I could put all kinds of highfalutin talk on it, but it was basically a table in the dark with one light, and Anne messing with people's heads like she do.
Yeah, if that's one thing Anne can do, she messes with your head.
Yes. No, it was great being absolutely alone in the very vacuous basement space before there was any sets of any sort.
Yeah.
Just a table, a small lamp, 2 chairs, I think a book.
Yeah, yeah.
And me wearing 19th century costuming.
Yeah. Kind of vaguely a riff on, well, not really. I don't want to review The Basement because we've talked about it, but the first time we were exposed to Anne was at Strata, which was a show put on by our friends over at Bricolage.
I like that you said exposed to Anne like I'm a virus, bacterial infection.
Yeah, she is the...
You need shots to keep her away.
Immersive Theater Patient Zero. She's the reason that we're all so obsessed and consumed by this. Mm-hmm. She exposed all of us. Can I say exposed a couple more times? In Strata was immersive theater, but a series of one-on-one kind of interactions, or in the case of Anne's scene where you played kind of a Harry. Why don't you describe what your scene was rather than
my scene in Strata?
Yeah.
I played the archivist, which I was in a huge room that had used to be a handball court, and it was filled with boxes full of files and like this just kind of the worst office ever that was just a literal mountain that was probably 15, 16 foot high, full of file folders and old office equipment. And I kind of sat atop this pile and weirded people out, and my task was to separate people so that the people who thought that they had come there with a partner would actually be separated and have to go it alone for the rest of the evening. So my unenviable task was to convince them to do this.
Well, I was going to say that was, seeing Sleep No More all those years ago sort of started my mental process for immersive theater and liking it. And then I had a series of one-on-one experiences going into Sleep No More where you can have these sort of intimate encounters with Hecate and other characters. And then, it was just sort of buzzing around in my brain. And then it really was Strata and Anne's scene that really started me thinking about what could we do as an experience, because ScareHouse is, groups of 6 to 8 people. It's very high impact. You're moving through. There's something so potent and so powerful about groups of 1 to 2 people being in a room with 1 to 2 actors. And, ScareHouse Secrets was a sort of first attempt to just sort of mill around in that space and learned a couple things from it. And that's what really grew to The Basement that we all know and love now. And Anne was and continues to be invaluable in developing that and trying to figure out how to freak people out, basically.
Yeah.
Have you been doing this your whole life? freaking people out?
Oh, not intentionally. Certainly by accident and by circumstance. But yeah. I got involved with Strata because their casting call was absolutely perfect for me. It said, wanted, like, improvisers over 30. Yes. I didn't have to memorize a script. I didn't have to do a monologue audition. Perfect. And I had been very active in the improv community up until that point, and still today. So it was a wonderful opportunity to be really responsive to patrons. You're not just acting at a person, you are acting with a patron, listening to what they say, responding to what they say, kind of valuing their input into your scene and being flexible and fluid within the moment, which is why I love improv, but also I love immersive theater and the basement, because you can have those wonderful interactions so you don't get bored. So it's not the same scene, it's the same scene every single time within parameters, but the interaction absolutely informs whether I'm, very sympathetic to a person who comes in my room or exceedingly angry at a person who is in my room, depending on what they bring to the table, and acknowledging that that's important.
Well, and so we've never really talked too much about this. I know you've been on the show before, but how did you get into improv?
This is a sad tale. So my first year of college, after a bout of pneumonia where I had, I got to college, got to CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, and immediately got pneumonia that put me down for a month. So within that first month where people are making their first friends, I was out of it. I was just sick in bed, dead. And then when I arose from my deathbed, I tried to get into theater, because theater had been what I was doing in high school. So I go to Scotch and Soda Theater at the time, and I'm going to say I love them, and I am a proud alumni member of Scotch and Soda Theater, but this was my interaction with the person who is manning the table at some sort of recruiting event. I'm like, I would like to do musical theater, and I was basically told in no uncertain terms that, well, unless you're a senior or really hot, you're probably not going to get a part, but we are opening an improv troupe.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, I guess if I want to perform at all, I will try this improv thing. And this was very new, No Parking Players, which was Scotch and Soda Theater's burgeoning improv troupe. It was their first semester ever. There was 4 of us. There was really just very few members. But we were super dedicated. We fell in love with it almost immediately, became very involved, and it honestly, sorry, CMU, it became my major. Whether that was on my diploma or not, improv absolutely became my major in college, and because we had formed this improv troupe that still exists today at CMU. Wow. It's now very old. I don't want to tell how old that is. But yeah, so basically I joined improv because I was not hot enough for musical theater.
Aww.
Yeah.
You're like, thank you, dude. I really appreciate that.
Right.
Actually, it worked out much better for me.
Yeah, no, and honestly, this is a little tangential, but in the last several years, I think there's many people who come to acting, and play by the rules, and mostly because those rules at some level work for them. So they audition for parts, and they read the lines that they're given to them, and they do well, and then they audition for another thing, and they get sad if they don't get cast in this, or if there's not a part written for them, they are written out of that play. They're written out of that casting experience. I have managed to stay on stage almost every single week since 2011.
Yeah.
Because I constantly create my own parts and create my own roles. And ScareHouse allows me to do that. You can kind of give me maybe a little too wide of a range to kind of just create this part for yourself. So I'm not playing into a role that I normally wouldn't get cast as. I create the role that's for me. And it's that attitude that I try to bring to Uncumber Theatrics. When I cast people, I have an idea of what function I want them to play within a show. But I don't write the part fully for them. I ask them to bring what they are to the table and craft a part that is very much reminiscent of their idealized role.
And that's excellent segue.
Thank you. See how I did that?
Look at you out there hustling your company. I'm so proud. Talk about Unencumbered Theatrics.
Uncumber. Uncumber is a saint, an apocryphal saint, no longer part of the canon. And I'll just start here because I think that's just to be clear. So she was this woman who was a Portuguese princess, and I'm Portuguese, so it's reminiscent, like it resonates with me, who wanted to become a nun, who wanted to live a spiritual life, but because she was beautiful, and of course royalty, she had this value in her being married off. So on like the day before her wedding, she prays to God to make her ugly, and she wakes up the next morning with a beard. She now is unmarriable, and so in a way is free to pursue her dreams. However, her father then crucifies her. Flash forward like 100 years when she's starting to be canonized, she becomes like this saint for like bards and traveling musicians and minstrels and actors, because if you pray to her, she might, there's this story that she drops a golden boot so that the starving artist can feed. And there's all sorts of cool stories about her as this patron of the arts. So that is why it's Uncumber Theatrics. And all this backstory was part of our first show,
I was going to say, yeah, as soon as you said that, yeah.
And we needed a website. Here we had this as a plot point in Her Things, so we kind of was like, well, we could use Uncumber as a Easter egg for Her Things. And so Uncumber Theatrics became the name of the company because we needed a website really quickly and thought it would be a cool Easter egg for patrons. So now we're stuck with it. And that's the backstory of Uncumber Theatrics.
And if you go back through the podcast archives, we did a conversation with you after Her Things, talking about that show, but just to quickly review, because it was at the first full immersive theater production your company had done, and you...
So Her Things was an estate sale. So it had all the trappings of an estate sale. You come in, and the estate attorney kind of introduces you to what had just happened, that this character named Willa Ballard has died, and all her things are up for auction. And you are free to peruse all of her objects, touch anything you want, read any letter you might find, just rifle through all her stuff because there's going to be an auction in 40 minutes. So what you learn as you start going through all her belongings is that not everything might be what it seems, that there's a mystery at stake, that her past was very bizarre and troubled, and that there may be a plot in progress above and beyond that, because as you are going through all of her belongings, there's characters coming up to you and engaging you in conversation, and they have some information to clarify what might be in a letter, or if you ask them about an object you found, maybe having a large reaction about that because they did not know that object existed before, and it shakes their preconceived notions of their own world. So you're having an impact on the evening. There's this auction in the middle where you have to kind of sacrifice your memories in order to win certain objects that allow you to open up other objects. So like where you were bidding for codes and keys and things that would open up a trunk or this little box that you found.
And auctioning for memories would be, I'm trying to remember, would be things like, who remembers, was it a sad story? Or what were some of the things they would ask for?
Oh gosh, this is taking me back. An embarrassing moment was one, a tale of a lost love, a dream deferred,
So then, basically, I know group was, I'm going to say maybe about 30, 40 people in the audience. And it would be like, and essentially that's what you are auctioning off, like who has the most embarrassing story. And, the actors are improvising and hilarious, still in character, still moving the story forward, but laugh out loud funny on some of these reactions to these. And again, as Anne says, like the winner, if you will, would then get that code that might unlock something. And there were so many great moments in the show where the guests going through would start interacting with each other because maybe one person finds half a map and the other person finds the other half of the map, and they lock eyes across the room and they go, and you're coming together and you're putting the pieces together. And in some way, similar DNA to an escape room in some ways, I guess you could say, but this is not putting all these facts together to escape a room. It's to figure out a story, to develop a narrative, and also open up some of these other things. And
I'm going back to the game reference of an RPG or role-playing game. It's like a real-life role-playing game.
Yep.
And the level of detail and backstory and work that Anne and her associates did on this show was impressive to the point of being maybe a little bit of a call for help. But we the journal was the one I remember.
My fully written out journal?
Yeah, a year in the life of, and it was all handwritten every page. I'm like, I know, and just probably, if I'm guessing, you probably put it all together. You had to figure out the handwriting and just page after page after page.
Yep, there was 5 different handwritings in that piece. 4 of them were mine.
Yeah.
And one person wrote another diary.
So think about that in terms of level of creative process,
Creative process and commitment.
Commitment of different voices, different writings, different journals, how all those backstories fit together. And then because you're Anne, you go, well, I should have different handwritings so that people don't...
I know. I did it to myself again during my Christmas card scavenger hunt this year called Advent, where I hid cards throughout the city as kind of a precursor to Serpentine to test out, what can I hide and where and how legal is this? And the Christmas cards, it would alternate every day between a character named Dawn and a character named Eve, which one was written by my right hand and one was written by my left hand. Just to make sure it looked differentiated enough. Yes. But anyway, I learned my lesson.
I'm laughing with endearment.
Thank you.
I'm not.
I learned my lesson for Serpentine, and so for Serpentine, I am making the actors create their own documents.
Okay.
So that I don't have to. So only 2 things are my handwriting.
And in case it wasn't obvious, we should stress this is not like we were talking earlier before we started this, the local theater institutions in Pittsburgh. And, on one end, of course, there are the theater groups that are bringing in the Pittsburgh Broadway series and doing these huge, elaborate productions tied into 6-figure marketing budgets and tie-ins.
I have no money.
On the other end...
I created Serpentine.
And we should say Serpentine is the upcoming show.
Serpentine is the upcoming show, which we'll talk about in just 1 second. You hold on. I was unemployed for the last 6 months, purposely unemployed. I unemployed myself. And almost primarily so I could work on Serpentine. So with my savings and also living without a job, I created Serpentine.
Wow.
Yeah. So please buy a ticket because I'm in debt.
Putting her savings into her art.
No, but... and I feel like so much can be done on very little if you're willing to sacrifice certain things. So, not that scripts cost a lot of money, but certainly we're creating our own work, so we don't have to, pay someone else for someone else's script. We're not even using scripts, because I use absolutely all improvisers. There's, for this show, one memorized line.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when it comes to marketing immersive theater experiences, and this is something we run into with the basement quite a bit, is it is tricky, because you and I know you in particular with Serpentine, you want people to just sort of opt in and have this experience and not have it too predefined so that they don't know what to expect. But then you are also asking people to make a commitment to something they don't know what it is, which is not how modern people like to buy tickets. That's
Right.
They need to, I mean, just look at the movies and the plays that are out there. They're all based on, I know what that is, so I will buy a ticket because that is based on the thing I like. I don't know what that is. It's scary. So what are the challenges for you to try to get attention for an immersive theater piece that you want to keep mysterious? You don't have a giant promo budget. So, what are you doing? I guess my two-part question is, what are you doing to get the word out about it? But then also, how do you define or explain what it is to people?
Well, A, I'm doing this podcast. B, luckily, I, in my day job, I am a marketing person. So I think the most important artistic skill that I have ever learned is the ability to write a press release. So my press releases are out. I have some articles lined up, so there's going to be some publicity that way. But also, I've spent a long time in the Pittsburgh artistic community to build up connections and, kind of spread things word of mouth, because I think, especially in Pittsburgh, word of mouth is very, very important. That being said, yes, all the challenges that you've stated are challenges that I have. And if you are, I'll say this before we start talking about Serpentine, but I want to assure people, no matter what your, little bit of trepidation is for purchasing a ticket for Serpentine, we've got your back. You're worried you don't have enough time to dedicate to Serpentine. We thought of that. Don't worry. We got your back. This is going to be an information sharing experience, so you're not responsible for attending everything, finding every clue. So long as the information is being shared, everybody gets the experience. Just take a risk, buy a ticket, make an appointment for the office, and just see what happens. Let your anxiety go. We got your back. Just buy a ticket. Let's see what happens.
And I mean, and the thing I always stress with any kind of immersive theater experience is, it is not something that's going to be replicated. It's not like, I missed that show, but I'll see it when it comes back to town.
No, I'm not doing this again. This is This was large and hard.
and it's not with. I know of a few smaller examples, but it's any kind of immersive show. Sleep No More is so popular. It's not like you're going to go I'll just wait till it comes. It travels. They don't travel.
No.
They're very site specific. They're very space and time specific. It is. It's cliche to throw out the whole once in a lifetime thing, but this really is pretty much a once in a lifetime experience.
Now, I have to be honest. I am not a fan of immersive theater, because going into an immersive theater event or some sort of experience, I'm nervous. I don't know how I'm supposed to act, so I start overthinking, what should I do? How am I supposed to respond to them? Am I not supposed to respond to them? Am I just supposed to watch the show? There's a lot of thoughts that go speeding through my head.
And I think that's there was an article I think that came out in HowlRound recently that was talking about how the rules for immersive theater are so varied. It makes people feel lost in that way, because there are a lot of immersive experiences that don't want your participation. And there are others that want it very casually. And the ones that I have created specifically for myself, we did a joint project with Devious Maid, which was a little bit far abreast of that, but my artistic goals is always to have it be incredibly interactive. And Serpentine has 5 different endings that we have planned. And the ending that will happen for this piece, this entire show, is going to be completely determined by the participants. So you have a say in how this goes. We are depending on our audience to have a say in how this goes. Because without the audience, there is no show. So we've created an experience that is dependent on participation. And I can understand your trepidation of, I don't know how to act. I think a good immersive experience teaches you how to act. If they're doing their job right, they are giving you the social cues of what they want and what they expect. So this is how Serpentine starts. We ask you to buy a ticket, and we are calling that making an appointment with the office. You will be buying an appointment for Mott Investigations. The appointment will be about 40 minutes long, and when you arrive at Mott Investigations, you will be immediately instructed, in no uncertain terms, please touch everything. Please investigate everything for such and such reason. I won't give away that reason now.
And brief sidebar, Anne does not have like a physical space. It's not like, we're going to Anne's theater. This space that you're going to, I'm assuming is not revealed to you until you buy a ticket, or is it?
Well, technically, if you just go to the ticket site, you'll figure it out. But also, yes, once you buy the ticket, it will be revealed. But you can kind of see where the first venue is.
Okay.
But it's merely the first venue.
Okay.
So essentially, the city is the stage.
The city is the stage.
Look at that, nicely done.
Beautiful. Because once you are finished with that 40-minute appointment, you have a variety of options of what you can do next. Within the office, you will have discovered a few characters and the locations of those characters, and you can go visit them. So if you want to have character interaction, go find a character and have another character interaction. There will be some characters in the office space, but you can go find other characters. Or, if you are afraid of talking to people, like Dudders is, there is also options for people who are introverts. There will be places...
Sorry, did we just determine that my director of sales and marketing is afraid of talking to people? Because it's something I probably should have found out before.
You should ask that stuff before.
Yeah, I suck at interviews. Sorry, please continue.
Are you also afraid of talking to people?
I'm
That's
fine.
how you interviewed her?
It was for a podcast.
All right, I understand. So if you choose not to investigate a human being, there are... you can do one of two things. You will also have discovered in the office the possible locations of different clues that will be in the environment itself. So you can go out into Pittsburgh and find locations that might have information. And option number 3 is there's going to, for the super introverted who don't even want to be outside of their house for long, who can only stand these 40 minutes outside of their house, there's a online component as well.
Wow.
So the characters have their own different types of websites and social media. There's different rabbit holes that you can investigate by just going online, by looking up some search terms. Google will be your friend for this experience. Awesome. So, and there is going to be everybody who's part of this experience is invited to join our chat room, our chat discussion, to share information, to help each other decode clues. Maybe there is something akin to one person has one half of a map and another person has another half of a map and has to connect in order to put that together. So whether you really love immersive experiences because you love interacting with characters, we got it. If you just want to do a scavenger hunt, we got it. If you just want to get some very weird but true stories about Pittsburgh and then go into some Google rabbit holes, we got that as well. So there is 3 ways to really experience the show, and it's choose your own adventure. You can do all 3 of those, and please do all 3 of those. I think that's the most fun. Or any one of those paths.
Well, and it's, to use the RPG analogy, it does sound like you can just play on that surface level, or go to it on a surface level, one time only, enjoy it, go like, that was really cool. Or, to your point, there are all these levels of you can go deeper and deeper and deeper.
Exactly.
I use this reference a lot when Lost was on the air. It's the same way. Like, there's some people who just watched that show and like, yeah, it's pretty weird. And then there were the obsessives who were going in and doing the backstories and doing everything else. Like, but everyone still enjoys it.
Let's talk about Lost, because, in fact, this show and a lot of the events that I've done and will do is based on a few things that I was so frustrated about by Lost. This is going to get geeky, guys. Sorry. Bear with me.
First time ever on this show.
So there was a few moments in Lost that were these wonderful Easter eggs where you just sit there and go, I need to know everything about this universe. The one that jumps to mind is when when they're already in the hatch, like down the hatch, this security door closes and a black light turns on and you see the security door is filled with this map that has all sorts of interesting things from it. I was in graduate school at the time, me and my entire graduate school cohort took a screen cap of this, blew it up, and we were like reading all the small details of this map. And I remember this thing that said Cerebus activity here, and I'm like, what is Cerebus activity?
Yeah.
And so we were calling the smoke monster Cerebus, and we were wondering why Lost wasn't.
Yeah.
And none of that information ever really turned into anything, and it was so frustrating because how can you create this detailed map full of information and not do anything with it?
Yeah.
That's not the case here.
Well, and that's, I think, what you really appreciate. I'm going to, off the top of my head, like someone like Guillermo del Toro, who you watch his movies and you can actually read all the journals and all the work he's done, and everything, like Crimson Peak, everything in there has a huge backstory, and if you were ever to encounter, he could tell you that's because of this, and it all fits in, and in the context of the movie you don't really find out about it, but to me there's a confidence like, well, he knows why it's there. Pacific Rim was another one where you're like, these huge sets, and you go like, oh, but that, and if you go in the DVD features in the background, you go like, oh, this all makes sense. With Lost, you're absolutely right, it felt like, oh, they're building to some larger thing. And then as it all ends, like, oh, they were just making stuff up and figuring out, like, we'll pay that off someday. And they're like, wow, this is hard.
I think they did themselves a disservice, too, which is they built upon nothing. So they felt constantly like they had to invent more than they needed to because they had already created it. They just needed to go down their own rabbit holes hard. And that's what we've tried to do because we're all improvisers working on this piece. So every time we create a detail, it's like, let's keep on pushing that detail to the end point. What can this possibly relate to? So everything's built upon each other. Each character has their own backstory. They've gone deep and built down, and you can ask them anything from their birthdays to what city they were born in, who their first love was.
Oh, wow.
Like, they have they are fully fleshed out human beings living in this fully fleshed out world. And it is an exceptionally complicated world, I will not lie. We have made this large in its detail. And we always create more than we feel people will discover, and on purpose, because there's always going to be that one person who asks the interesting question.
Interesting.
And we want to have an answer for that one person who asks the interesting question. So dive deep, and if you think you know something, ask. And if you're wrong, a character might push you and go, oh, that's weird. Because I remember, for example, for Her Things, we had a couple of people who thought it was about werewolves, and it wasn't at all. No, it does and it doesn't, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, no. But I can see how you would think that. I would have loved to see you confront a character with that information, and let's see what happens with that.
And that's one of my pet peeves, I'll say, and I'm sure one of yours too, is people who try to come up with very simple one-sentence descriptions of this entire involved mythology, and like, oh, be very dismissive. Like, there's nothing I think you've ever done. You could be like, oh, they were werewolves. And
Yeah,
that was one of the things that drove me so crazy about Lost was how many people who had barely watched the show or didn't watch the show watched the last 5 minutes and went, "Oh yeah, I knew it was all like a dream sequence or something." Like, no, that was just a payoff for the one season.
Right.
They didn't all that other.
Yeah.
You guys are making me very thankful I never got into Lost.
Sorry. No, it was a great show with a lot of potential. It just didn't... I don't think it appreciated its own potential or loved the show as much as its fans did.
Yeah, that's very...
And
Yeah.
that's sad. Like, love the thing you're doing. Because, well, I don't have the money that would come in from Lost. So maybe I have the freedom to love what I'm doing.
Well, so as we wrap up here, how can people buy tickets for this crazy thing?
They can go to uncumbertheatrics.com and buy tickets. They will click through to brown paper tickets and find a ticketing there. I'll let people know because there has been some questions about the ticketing site, and I don't know why. I think it's just that Brown Paper Tickets app is kind of weird.
Yeah.
You are buying for a specific time slot, so go find whatever time slot works for you. You can enter the game anytime within the first 4 weeks. The game is 5 weeks long. If you enter early, you have a lot of time to play. If you enter late, you don't have to have that sort of, what do you call it? Attention span.
Yes.
I lost my own train of thought thinking of attention span. So you can buy any time within the first 4 weeks. However, I will tell you this. As people enter the game, the story is unfolding, and it's not waiting for you. It is unfolding.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
So there's group events that will occur periodically throughout the weeks. So the earlier you enter, the less chance you have of missing something that you might want to have gone to. And some of the group events are cool, and I really want people to go to them.
Cool. Well, I think anyone listening to this can sense how excited you are about this. This is not just like a, hey, there's a thing I can make some money at. This immersive theater thing.
Right.
The kids are doing. I got it.
No, I'm super proud of it because, just to back up a little, this is a film noir alternate reality game. So it's a film noir style genre. So we have used so many tropes from the film noir genre, the detective fiction, that sort of hardcore detective fiction genre, specifically Chandler. And we have managed to take all the tropes out, use them, and subvert them.
Very fun.
So, that's just been so much fun to play with. And the fact that we were able to base all of these characters on a true Pittsburgh cold case makes this piece, to me, something uniquely Pittsburgh.
Very cool.
That we've created a film noir universe within the reality of Pittsburgh.
Very cool. And we'll have to have you on again sometime to talk about comedy and improv, because we've had you always talking about basement and the immersive stuff, but there's this whole other aspect of your life
I cannot be funny on demand.
Sure you can.
Well, with an audience,
okay,
I can in a ukulele. Then I'm hilarious. But
there we go. Live stream requests.
I will do it.
You with a ukulele.
Oh my gosh!
We'll just throw out topics and
go. I will sing some songs for you guys.
I've seen it. Saw a couple weeks ago at Arcade Theater. It just brought the house down. It was great.
Well, thank you so much, Anne, for chatting with us about your show.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it. I think I may have to jump in for this one.
I think you should.
Do it.
What's the worst that could happen?
Talk to strangers.
I already told you don't have to.
Oh, good. Okay.
Well, here's another strategy. Bring a friend to talk to the stranger for you.
Scott. He's like, nope. No, but this is such a cool show, and it sounds like a cool concept. I'm really looking forward to it. I really want to see what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
Because it's obvious there's a lot. Just you looking at me right now, I'm like, there's so much going on in there right now. Mm-hmm. You're just like,
this could be part of the show. Yes. Maybe this is how it started. I don't know.
Well, we're already kind of meeting right now in a weird film noir-y sort of location. Just for patrons at home. We are parked in a garage somewhere downtown. It's kind of creepy.
It's kind of creepy.
Thank you so much, Anne, for joining us, and we're really looking forward to your show, and thank you. This has been so cool. Just getting in your head and kind of chatting you with these things. We will be back next week with another ScareHouse podcast. Follow us on Twitter. We're the ScareHouse. Like us on Facebook. And we're also on YouTube as the ScareHouse. We just posted a brand new teaser trailer. We have ScareHouses Weekly going up every Thursday. That have been pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
If I do say so myself. And continue to watch us and see what we got coming up for you. Talk to you next week.